Just to add to what Tullio said, I actually would go a step further sometimes and actually work with clients to co-design something. So we developed a new workshop, for example, in how to use smartphone devices to take and photographs. And it was, we wanted to develop a workshop for people in developing countries, scientists in developing countries. So they could go out in the field and use their phones to take video and photos that they could use. And so we actually involved the client in piloting that, and they helped to develop the actual workshop. And they didn't pay for it, but they then paid for us to run it after that. So I think that sort of testing and getting feedback is really important for design.
Great idea.
Also like to add to those thoughts, just to stress as well what Tullio said, this is don't be afraid to start small, right? I launched a new workshop last year, and that was a workshop where I was selling tickets essentially for anybody from any institution to come and join. And I booked a venue to host 12 participants. I only got 6 people coming to that workshop, but I went ahead and did it anyway. And for the reasons that Jenni and Tullio have said, the one was that it was the first time running that workshop, so I learned about what worked and what I could improve. I also got some testimonials from there, some social proof, which is important. And that was last year. Based off that workshop and the engagement that I put it out on LinkedIn and my website and so forth, I just ran that same workshop for 45 researchers from a large HIV/AIDS TB research consortium here in South Africa, in Joburg, a couple of weeks ago. So the thing is, don't be afraid to start small, and you also don't know where that first or second workshop is going to take you. And then to highlight again the idea of generating social proof, like Tullio said. So get those testimonials, document everything, make yourself searchable, put it on your website, put it on your LinkedIn, make sure that everything you've done is available online. To say there, that can sometimes feel like a really long game. I've been blogging on my website for years, but my largest training client came to me through my website for my science communication training. So keep going with documenting everything that you've done and keeping that portfolio current, especially in today's day and age with the AI search. Make sure your work online is optimized for AI search and good old Google search too.
Super important. I'll quickly add to that evidence for what Brendon just said. Earlier today, I had a strategy call with a client from Monash University. And I asked him, how did you hear about our training? And he said, oh, ChatGPT said you're the best at this. I was like, okay, good to know that ChatGPT thinks I'm the research poster training guy. But why did that happen? It did not happen by chance. It happened because I put out lots of blogs, like quality pieces that I spent a lot of time on, where I give a lot away for free. These LLMs can read that and figure out, okay, perhaps this person knows what they're doing, and then they recommend you.
We have another question. I believe this one's from the forum. It's from Sasha. How do you convince clients that it's worth paying for people who really know how to SciComm? The follow-up is, I help scientists leading themselves and their teams with confidence, oversight, and consecutively more success. The heart of my programs is communication. Although group leaders and directors are interested in the topic, the conversion rate is disappointing. They say no time, no money. How can we make them understand that leadership is a skill worth investing in time and money in?
It's a challenge. But yes, it's funny. I find it easier coming in as a consultant than someone within an organization. And I think once you have an established reputation as a consultant, it becomes a lot easier then to do that. But having said that, there's still a perception out there that's unfortunate that anyone can communicate. And that you don't really have to pay a lot of money to do it well. And so that's something that you're always battling. We're involved in a large community engagement project in Saudi Arabia. And I know when we were negotiating that, and they've got lots of money, the client said, well, wouldn't you like to just do it for the experience? And we just laughed because at my age, I don't really need the experience. I have to say, I almost would, after having done the project, do it for the experience because it was such a fabulous job. But yes, it's always something where you have to prove the value of it. And And that's where testimonials, as Tullio said, and a past record can really help, which doesn't help you if you're starting out, but you've probably done things in your other works that you can point to that can help.
I will also say something we do, for example, to them, make a point about the value of video abstracts, which is one of the services we offer, is that there is published literature that shows if you have those papers with the video abstract have 20% more citations. Great, slap that on your website, even if it's not your research. It's very strong evidence that this service you offer does produce results researchers are interested in. It's just an example. It will be different for everyone. But if you can find some hard evidence to support your statements, that's definitely something scientists respond to.
Yeah, great answers there. We're going to pull a few questions here from the chat. The first one is going to be from Petra. It's, which experiences do you have with selling online formats of science communication?
It depends what sort of online stuff you're talking about. If it comes to selling, I remember the Australian government paid for us to develop an online social media course, which they offered to scientists for free for a while. That was easy to sell. And it did lead to paid courses. We ran a series of 10 courses in Poland because of the work we did on that. But it's difficult to get people to pay for online things that they download or that they do online. Having said that, online workshops can work really well. So I noticed Toss is on the call here as well, that Toss and myself and Sarah from my team have developed online workshops for communicators and researchers across Africa, Asia, and Central America. And we run them over 8 weeks and we mentor them in between times, one-on-one, and they've been enormously successful. We did a similar thing with people from Southeast Asia from about 7 different countries in a series of modules over 6 weeks. So you can do the online like we're doing now, but if you're wanting people to go and buy a product online, I think that can be quite challenging, is my personal experience.
I wanted to just pass the mic to Tullio because Tullio has been very successful at selling the kinds of courses we're talking about, where people, if I'm understanding correctly, Tullio, do the course completely sort of asynchronously, buy it from your website.
Yeah, the training we offer are 2 types, workshops, in person or online, synchronous or asynchronous, so self-paced, pre-recorded online courses. Those are interesting. Like the direct sales to individuals are not a lot. It's like a trickle. But what has worked well for us is to establish licensing agreements with universities. And then that means, for example, at Adelaide Uni, every PhD student gets access to our course if they want it. And so instead of selling one by one, all of a sudden you're selling 100 seats in one go. And that's a lot better for business because it's a more predictable, stable, larger volume work. It's also a lot less admin to do one-off for big groups compared to individuals. So that's another model you can consider. But yeah, doing direct sales to the individual, it's a lot of work, and you would need to make it work. You would need to open and close. So you create the time pressure to enroll now, because if the course is always there and is always available, then there's no time pressure to get it actually enroll, and people often never do it. We haven't been doing the cohorts and open and close because it's extra work. So we prefer to pursue these licensing agreements with the universities instead.
I wanted to make one last point here. So my position or my experience is more similar to Jenni in this regard, where I've often developed tailored trainings for institutions that have come to us with a specific ask, whether it's about improving their publications or something else. And in today's environment, especially as budgets are shrinking, online training suits organizations' budgets, right? Especially if you're looking to work with international clients. It's been very helpful for me. I'm based, as I said, in Cape Town, South Africa, to be able to work with researchers from Canada, from parts of Europe, etc., from Cape Town. And I hadn't initially imagined that when I launched my business. My focus was really on in-person work here. But the COVID pandemic actually created a kind of curveball that set me up to do these online trainings. We were initially going to do an in-person training for the pilot. And then because we couldn't meet in person, we jumped to creating an online video-based training. And with that experience, we grew to being able to offer this online format globally. So online really has the benefits for cost for the client and the ability to work with many clients. Although personally, I still prefer an in-person training just because of the communication ability and the engagement. But certainly, if you're looking to get trainings going, online really has a lot of benefits these days.
Very great points there. I am going to insert in a question here that when I attended your session at the conference, this seemed to be like a very great point for the audience. So, and it's about how do you price your services and how do you decide how much to charge for something? And I know a lot of people, they don't feel like they should be charging as much for things.
Maybe given I'm the most established, I should answer that. I think most, particularly beginning science communication consultants, don't charge enough. And they offer a lot for not a lot of money, which then comes back to bite them. You really should be charging at least a third above what your costs are, so that you can cover overheads and times when you're not working. And for me in Australia, I pay thousands of dollars every year in insurances. I know this was another question, but I have a studio manager. She's not a science communicator, but she's crucial to my business because she does all the invoicing. She works with my bookkeeper, my accountant. She helps with any events we have to manage. She helped me today with organising interviews that we're doing on evaluating a big 10-year water program in Australia. So having that sort of support, you need to cost that into what you're charging your time out as well. I remember when I first became a consultant, I felt embarrassed to be charging people money. I felt like, and I love what I do, so I sometimes feel like, why am I charging for these things that I love to do? But I've got mortgages, I've got expenses, and it's about valuing what you do. I am on an independent advisory group with scientists as a communication specialist. And the manager of that said to me a couple of years ago, she said, Jenni, you should be charging as much as a scientist. I'm going to put up your rate. And I went, okay. But that was a good lesson to me that I have that level of experience and knowledge and I should be charging as much as them. So don't undervalue what you do.
I'm happy to share something I got passed on in my family where there is a past of running a hardware store. And the rule of thumb there was if the hardware store buys this screw for $1, you need to sell that screw for $3 at least. So $1 is your costs. $1 is the cost of running your shop and your time as a shop owner. And then another dollar is for profit, hopefully, if there's some left. So a good business, like a very healthy business, should have like 20, even 30% of profit, which is hard to reach. I'm still not quite there. But that should be your target. Profit is not a dirty word. It means it's a business that is good and viable and can grow. If there is no profit in the business is not going to grow. You're not be able to hire new people if there's no profit at the end of the year. So you're just going to stay where you are. So it's also a money thing in the end. Running a business, you cannot just pretend the money conversation is not important. It is essential, in fact.
And then we've got another question in the chat from Veronica on how important is a social media profile for starting a business in science communication? I know all three of you are very active, at least on LinkedIn. So how important is that to your business?
I feel that at least at a bare minimum, one needs to have a LinkedIn profile active. I run a LinkedIn training for researchers, and one of the things I always share with them is if you've got a LinkedIn profile, don't have a ghost profile. And what I mean by that is one of those profiles where your name is, but there's no photograph or there's just a banner. If you've got a LinkedIn profile, have it fleshed out so that people know who you are and what you do. ideally oriented so that it shows what sort of impact you're having or aiming to have through your business. And this, Tullio and I were chatting earlier about Tullio is now highly ranked in ChatGPT results, which is fantastic. But I, for instance, have a LinkedIn post that I shared last year that is getting picked up in AI search results also. People are coming and landing on that post today, months later, commenting and so forth. It's been very interesting for me to see that. It's just one of those, but just remember that LinkedIn is now being pulled into Google search results and AI search results. So if you put in a pitch or a proposal or someone's heard about you, they're going to Google you. And you, at the bare minimum, need to have a website that they can see. And secondly, have a LinkedIn profile that's up to date. Don't have one of those ghost profiles where your last post was from 5 years ago.
Brendon, you got another question on chat about how the LinkedIn course came about and how it pans out.
Sure. So just quickly to say, I wouldn't consider myself a social media expert, but LinkedIn has been absolutely invaluable for my career. I actually wouldn't be here with you today if it wasn't for LinkedIn. You've probably heard the story last year if you were there, but Tullio and I met over LinkedIn probably in 2022. I saw his content and saw that he was a leader in the science communication space. So I started engaging with his content. And then the PCST Venice in 2023 came up and we saw that each other was going and said, hey, I'm coming from South Africa, you're coming from Australia. It's a long way. Let's meet up in person. And we've forged a friendship and a collegial relationship that has panned out into the session we did last year, the session that we're doing today, and other things. Based on that experience, I wanted to share what I've learned through using LinkedIn with researchers particularly, largely because I also see a lot of research communication on LinkedIn that I certainly feel could be optimized. Last year, I piloted that course, which is the one I referred to earlier, where I just started off with 6 people here in Cape Town. Actually, through seeing that on LinkedIn, I picked up this other large client, this consortium of health researchers who I just worked with in Johannesburg a couple of weeks ago. So it's kind of meta in a way. It's running a workshop on LinkedIn based on what I've experienced on LinkedIn, and then actually seeing LinkedIn get me more work.
We got our first customer on Twitter 9 years ago. Now we all know what happened to Twitter. Now LinkedIn is the place. And yes, real friendships are forged on LinkedIn, like with Brendon or another science communicator from Italy called Julia. Built a great relationship. She eventually became a client of mine and a friend. All started on LinkedIn because we were both active and seeing it. The algorithm made each other see our stuff, and things played out from there. So LinkedIn, I would say, is also great because you don't need to bother with ads. What you get for free organically is really good. It's honestly the best engagement. None of the meta platforms will come close, in my experience at least. Yeah, lots of good can be said about LinkedIn today. So if you want to pick one, probably invest in LinkedIn.
Econnect Communication started before social media ever started. But like Tullio, I was on Twitter and left Twitter as soon as it became X. And I do use LinkedIn today. I can't say that it ever has got me a client, but it certainly raised my profile. And one of the things that I find raises my profile isn't just posting about myself, but posting about my clients and what they're doing and what they've done differently because of what we've done with them. I think that can be really powerful.
Yeah, don't just make the mistake of bragging on LinkedIn. There's way too much of that. It's about offering value. Yeah, talking about others as well, not just yourself.
Another question here is from Siddharth. So it's possibly more of a generic freelancer question and not specific to SciComm. But would you have any advice in building and planning better systems to buffer the amount of work and also money that you get throughout the year? Sometimes there might be intense periods versus low periods of work.
Okay, I can have a go. As you know, because I have a team, I can spread work a bit better. And also, my team has 4 permanent members and then freelancers on top of that. And the freelancers are really essential because the workflow is up and down, and there's dry periods and wet periods. And being able to stretch or contract rapidly is quite essential to my business. Because look, even 9 years in, there's no predictability. Just forget about it. This is just not a thing, unfortunately. So you need to, yeah, design the business to be able to stretch and contract. If you're on your own, that's very difficult, of course. And that's why I think being a freelancer, working solo to some degree can be tougher because, and I've seen over the years several freelancers we worked with burn out because they cannot say no to opportunities when they arise, and then eventually they have too much on their plate and they don't know how to handle it and they burn out. So that's a real challenge for freelancers. From my point of view, it's still challenging, but I have more buffer.
I also have a buffer, but I don't have employees. I used to. I have subcontractors who work for me and they don't work for anyone else. And they work between part-time and full-time. And I also, like Tullio, have other people we can call in if we get too much work in a particular area, and that helps to even things out. And I think if you're a freelancer, though, I think finding people that you trust their work for, that you could work with, you probably still have to oversee it, but you could probably subcontract some of that out to other freelancers to help you with that, which is essentially what I do. The second thing I'd say, though, is that it's good if you think ahead 6 months. And our team, we meet every week and we go through every project. We look at what proposals are out there, what's going ahead. We had a meeting today. It was just half an hour. And we've all got a good feeling for what's out there, what could happen or what couldn't happen, what we do if we get too much work at this point. And that really helps the process. There was a year that I took off to finish my PhD, although I didn't. And I went to the UK and travelled around Italy and France and so on. And that wasn't good because I ended up still working back in my business in Australia, but I didn't do any marketing. And I realised that the most people wanted to market with was me. So when I got back, we'd finished lots of projects, but we had no new projects on the go. So that was a real challenge, and that's when I had paid employees, and I had to let some of them go and restructure the business. So you really do need to think ahead. And if you're the main person in the business, taking 12 months off is probably not good for the long-term sustainability of your business.
Yeah, that makes total sense on that front. And speaking about people on your team, the next question we have is, what types of roles are needed in the team besides science communicators? What types of people have been like super helpful to your work? And
I can say that I wish I hired my operations assistant years before than I actually did. I waited 7 years before I hired an operations assistant. And I was like, I should have done this earlier because they can take so much of your desk, like all the more repetitive, simplest things, taking this blog draft and putting it up on the website, making sure the formatting is right and upload the pictures. All of that sort of stuff can be done by somebody else. So that would be one recommendation. The way my business functions is that we have science communicators and professional creatives working side by side, and that's how we can deliver the animations, which are scientifically accurate and also beautiful to look at. But that will be a bit different for every business, I guess.
I think one thing I'm fortunate in is that my team is a spread of demographics. So I've got a young woman in her early 30s and she knows all about social media and digital shit. And I've got another two in their early 40s, and one of them is in my office manager, a studio manager. She's fantastic. And she also does our marketing and helps with LinkedIn. And the other one is like a senior consultant, and another one a bit older who's very experienced at publications. And so that sort of spread of ages gives you different skills, different knowledge, different connections with your clients out there. And I think that's really good. If we're all the same age and experience, it wouldn't work very well.
My model is potentially a bit smaller than Jenni and Tullio's at the moment, but I have a very close collaborator who I've developed and run many of my science communication trainings with. And she also is a scientist by professional background and strong on visual design. For instance, outside the trainings, if we're working on producing a set of policy briefs or reports for a client, I'll do the writing and editing, and then subcontract her in to do the visuals. So my point there is that most of us, there's so much SciComm out there, and most of us have our skill sets. So look for others that can support you with the skill set that you don't have, people that you can trust and pull through and build those relationships. I also wanted to comment here on a great question, and I think it was sparked by Tullio's reference to freelancers who have burnt out. You asked in the chat about what is your advice for preventing burnout. I feel this question has many layers because of the different personality types we all have and our ability to cope with mental stress. From my perspective, I need quite a bit of space between large projects. When I was a young person, I said, look, I don't want to do a 9 to 5. I don't want to do my own thing. But sometimes now I'm doing a 9 to 7, right? I don't do it much now, but when I was younger, I used to work late at night into the wee hours. I can't do that now that I'm in my 40s, but I used to.
You're still young, Brendon.
Yeah. So, but my point is, for instance, if I do a big project, I need a few days after that project to settle down, to calm my nerves, to just recalibrate. So I build that into my schedule, right? I organize my work. So if I know I'm going to Johannesburg, I'm flying on a plane to Johannesburg to run a workshop, I'm going to be there for a few days. And when I get home, I need to down tools for a day or two. So I organize my schedule in that way. I need that for my own well-being. Others are different. I often marvel at how I see some people juggling so much and just back to back, and that's your own thing. A friend of mine here in South Africa who runs a small business wrote a post recently, which I just keep repeating the quote line. She said that you need to design your business to suit your nervous system. And that is, I think, everything. Our mental well-being, our wellness is really key. So think about that when you're running your business. And it's harder to do in the beginning. You want to say yes to everything, and often you need to. Often the ability to make that space does come with having a bit more of a buffer. But I think keep your wellness as a as a central pillar of your business, because when you're running a business, it is consuming. So you want to think about all of those aspects.
I have what we call the swim factor. We do a lot of traveling in our work. And so if we go somewhere, we need to build in the swim factor, which could just be going to the beach for a day while you're at that nice location, or going for a walk in the bush, or doing something nice while you're traveling to somewhere, so that you have that relief and that you actually enjoy the environment that you're in when you're traveling as well.
It looks like Sasha is back now.
Should be. Yeah, thank you very much, Nicolette, and sorry everyone for my Italian internet. We are quickly arriving to the end of our first part, which is Q&A. I would like to take one more question because I think it's quite relevant, like kind of going back to the beginning. The question from Mark Ivan, who tells, okay, when is the best time to go full time when you're doing science communication enterprise? I'm also interested in that because I also keep consulting while doing other things. And it seems wise because you have some backup, but then maybe it is not wise because you cannot be full time and you miss opportunities. How did you do that? Did you dive right away 100%, or you had a transition period?
I could start. I went in 100%. I finished my PhD. I was effectively unemployed. I thought, let's start a startup. Why not? I was broke before as a PhD student. I'm going to be broke some more as a startup founder. But yeah, I gave it 100%. But it also was the perfect stage in my life when to do it because I had no responsibilities. I was single, not a parent, and still early 30s. So I will recommend to go all in. Otherwise, might be hard to do half. Maybe better to go all in and give it a good shot for, I would say, a year and a half. You need to give a business about a year and a half to really gain some momentum. And then you might call the shots if it's not working. But give it a good year and a half, possibly full time. That would be my recommendation.
I went full time after being at CSIRO for 6 years, and I decided to do it because I was frustrated with working for an organisation for mostly male bosses who didn't recognise the value of communication. While I was still there, I was lucky enough to be asked to do a couple of consultancies as an employee of CSIRO. I had developed the training workshops with TOS while I was at CSIRO, so I actually had some things to start with. And it worked well. Here I am more than 30 years later, and it's still going strong. So, yeah, I agree with Tullio. Jump in. If you've got something to give, jump in.
Brendon.
Yeah, I agree. Like Tullio said, if you're going to go for it in the beginning, you need to give it your. If you're concerned around the financial implications, there are, of course, ways to start testing the waters while you still have permanent employment, or perhaps you're on a contract. So if you were sort of on a contract somewhere and you had a bit of space, you could, say, dedicate 1 day a week to your science communication, strategizing about what you're going to do, what you're going to offer, potentially start identifying clients, thinking about people you could reach out to, workshops you could offer, and so on. And like I said earlier, start small if you're kind of more risk averse. But if you've got some financial buffer and some time and the desire, then jump for it, go for it.
Thank you very much, everyone. So we have good news about speed dating, because we closed the registration at some point, but I think, we are now 49 in the chat. The goddess of Zoom, Nicoletta, tells that it is manageable for the speed dating. If you want to remain, please remain, even if you didn't receive the communication that you can. What is the speed dating? We will now have a break for 5 minutes, and then we will come back, have one breakout rooms. You will be put together with a random person, and you have that 3-4 minutes to introduce yourself and to have a preliminary exchange about what you do. And then the breakout room will finish far before you want it to finish. But this is the part and the fascination of the game, so that you want to continue being in touch afterwards. At the beginning, we will ask your permission to share your emails only with those who were in the room, and then those who give that permission. You will all have emails of everyone so that you can be in touch. Thank you, Siddharth. Now that's your moment, please.
Yeah, I have an important announcement. So we are very happy to announce the next PCST webinar that's happening on the 12th of March. And the webinar is on connecting global to the local. So it's really about understanding how you can connect local contexts with global sort of frameworks or paradigms. And I will put a link in the chat. We just wanted to invite everyone to register for the next webinar as well, and to make it if you can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siddharth.